I'd like to talk to you about faith toward God from the um, sixth chapter of the book of Hebrews in the Bible. Um, this is one of the six principles of the uh, doctrine of Christ that's very often misunderstood. And what I'd like to do is just kind of share personal kind of experience. Um, there was a time that I was in a conversation with a group of young people from different backgrounds who were students of the Bible. And the question came up, it said that, well, the Bible contradicts itself. And this individual I was speaking to said there's a scripture that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path. And that was a passage from the book of Proverbs. And then he contrasted that verse to a passage from the book of Second Timothy that said that he has not given us a spirit to fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And this individual raised a question about God giving us a sound mind and the ability to judge and make decisions and discernment. He talked about all of those concepts about, discernment and judgment and having a sound mind as contrasted to lean not to your own understanding. And he pointed out the fact that many preachers that in churches that he had visited had encouraged him to lean not to his own understanding, to just trust in God. And so he was confused. And because he felt that these two concepts were not reconcilable, that either you're going to just not think on your own, you're just going to totally trust in God and just give up your will to submit to the will of God and listen to what you're being led by, say, whatever the preacher told you or whatever, versus having a sound mind and making judgments for yourself. Well, I like to share a brief experience that would illustrate how these concepts reconcile. I can remember reaching a point in my life where I believed that that God was leading me to go back to school, to go back and go to college and complete my college degrees. And I took this to heart, and I believed that God wanted me to go back to school. So I trusted in God that this was the will of God for my life. And I set out to go back to school. But as I went along through this process, I ran into all kinds of obstacles. I ran into funding issues. I ran into time issues. I had other competing situations that conflicted with my ability to follow a schedule to go back to school and complete. So all of these obstacles came in, but I trusted God and I believed that this was the will of God for my life to finish school. So in spite of the obstacles and the fact that I could not foresee at times my ability to go forward and to complete school, I continued on anyway. And I continued to work and to acknowledge God and to pray and to seek God's face and to seek out this goal of completing school. And I continue to work diligently toward it. And there were periods of time where there were blind spots, things that I could not foresee, that I couldn't discern, that I didn't have enough information to make a decision about in terms of my ability to move forward. But I continued to move forward and trust in God because there was a vision that I could complete this and that I would complete this. And I was committed to this. So, in spite of these blind spots, in spite of this lack of illumination, the ability to foresee what was going on, I trusted in God. And that carried me, that trust in God carried me through those gaps of blindness, those gaps that I couldn't see, those gaps that I was uncertain. And so, in terms of looking at that God has not given us a spirit to fear, but a spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind. I didn't have any fear because I believed God that I was going to be successful in completing my goals. So, in spite of the obstacles, I had faith that I would achieve my goals. I had faith that God would make a way, that God would open the door. And what I found was that as I continued to maintain this perspective, to maintain this viewpoint, to maintain this attitude, to trust in God, that those doors opened. But I remained of a sound mind. I remained steadfast. I continued to persevere and to move forward. And instead of flinching and losing faith, and instead of walking away, instead of just quitting and giving up and becoming frustrated and disappointed, I continue to look forward to the goal and continue to work toward the goal and continue to persevere. God gave me a sound mind to stand up. And when those doors opened, I was able to walk through. When those opportunities were available, I was able to take advantage of them because I remained diligent. I trusted in God and I didn't lean to my own understanding because my understanding told me that, wow, you don't have the money to do this, or it's going to conflict with your time, or there's another obstacle in the way. So it's not possible that you're going to achieve this. And this is what my natural mind was telling me as I was going along, that I couldn't do this, that I wouldn't be able to do this. But what I was able to do is trust God through those periods of time when the lack of understanding, the lack of clear information, when all of those things took place that could have taken me off the path of achieving those goals. And so I was able to reconcile those two concepts about trusting in God and having a sound mind at the same time, and being able to use discernment and use judgment. Because there are times in life that I found that you won't be able to see forward. You won't be able to see a clear path. But those are the times when you trust God, when you rely on God, when there's an unknown in the equation, and you have to work past that unknown to get to a known and to get into a situation where you're in control. Sometimes you're not in control, and you have to recognize, and in during those periods of time, is to rely on God, to trust in God, to trust in the vision, to trust in your faith, to trust in having faith toward God, fidelity touching deity, being true to the ideal, being true to the belief, being true to the goal, being true to the vision that you have. And so I encourage you to have faith toward God, trust in God, and have a sound mind, and continue to work toward your goals and to those things that you believe.